So hello everyone and welcome to another video, and this today is going to be a bit more talking about the memory thing that I talked about in the last video, and also some more results I gathered from testing some of my cards. Not this one though, this is still in disrepair because this ePower still doesn't work, but these two things do have something on them that I can use to explain what I'm doing in this video. So in the last video I showed the negative code scaling that the Samsung memory on my GTX 580 Lightning, the second Lightning, has. And one thing I completely forgot about is that I once observed the reverse on my GTX 580 DirectCO 2. That memory is also Samsung, and it does like being very, very cold. So the one card, the memory got faster when it got hot, on the other card it got faster when it got cold. Now, it wouldn't really make sense if your concept is that every Samsung memory is the same. But that concept is just wrong, because not every Samsung memory is the same. So if you're familiar with overclocking on DDR4, at this point I have to say that well, I guess I would have gotten the idea to make this video sooner or later, but it was actually Bullseye from Actually Hardcore Overclocking who commented under the last video that I should write down the memory part numbers. That brought me to the idea, yes, of course, this makes total sense. There's not just one revision of Samsung memory, there's different ones. I found two, in fact. So yeah, just like on DDR4 desktop, or also DDR3, but DDR4 is the newest one, you not only have a manufacturer of memory, you have different revisions from that manufacturer. So just like on DDR4, Samsung C die and Samsung B die are polar opposites. Different revisions of Samsung memory on graphics cards, specifically the 1 gigabit GDDR5 you find on 400 and 500 series cards, could have different revisions that behave very differently when you overclock them. And exactly that is the case. It's not really that complicated if you think about it. It makes perfect sense, actually, to such an extent that I really thought, how did I not think of this? So yeah, this video is pretty much going into that, and also just some more results. I did more testing, we're getting to that later. So the reason why I've brought these out is because, well, both of these, well, this was once a graphics card, this one is still missing its VRM. Both of these still have memory modules on them, and both of these are Samsung, but there's a difference. So if you look at the part number on these, you see how the memory module says K4G1032F5FE HC04. The E is the important part, because this tells us, I found a Samsung memory, Samsung memory datasheet that told you how the part numbers work. The E, or like the last letter before the dash, tells you what revision the memory is. And if we look at this memory, you see it says the same thing, except instead of an E, you have a G there. And those are the two different revisions of memory I have found on my Samsung cards. I haven't looked at all of them. Some of them I don't want to disassemble because they have thermal pads that disintegrate very easily and I cannot replace them. So those free cards, I don't know what they have, but you can make assumptions from how the memory behaves. So yeah, and these two revisions, well, the datasheets calls them revisions. I'm just gonna keep calling them letter die because that is the standard we use for DDR4 Samsung memory, because revisions is a micron thing. So I don't want to confuse people. I'm just gonna keep using letter die, referring to the revisions. So this card has Samsung E die. Preferably, we also have to say it's 1 gigabit E die because different densities, the letters don't mean anything. So like 4 gigabit AFR is kind of decent, whereas 8 gigabit AFR is trash. So you also have to look at the density, but all the GDDR5 I have on my cards is 1 gigabit. There are some 2 gigabit cards, like 580s with 3 gigabytes of memory. Those use 2 gigabit, but I don't have any of these. All my cards are 1 gigabit. So I'm just gonna use the latter. So yeah, this card is on eDie. So is my GTX 580 DirectCU2 and the 580 reference card. The straight up from NVIDIA reference card I have. These use Samsung eDie memory. And what I found out overclocking these cards is that eDie really likes to be cold, and it has good voltage scaling. So eDie is the kind of memory that gets faster when you cool it down, which is basically the standard thing you would expect. You cool something down and it gets more stable so you can clock it higher. And also when volt modding eDie, I've also asked around a bit in the Linus Tech Tips Discord, and Madness from the Linus Tech Tips Discord also sent in 2 results from his cards. Both of them use eDie, and they behaved pretty much the same as my eDie cards. So the sample size is still kind of small, but I kind of am confident that it is consistent enough to say this. So the eDie memory I observed having, just normal cold scaling. So the colder it gets, the faster it goes. And if you cool it down really, really far, it genuinely gets really, really fast. So the DirectCU2 once ran 2675 megahertz when I had the card on a chilled water loop. So the memory was really, really, really cool. I think between 0 and 10 degrees under load. So yeah, they go really, really fast. And eDie also really likes voltage scaling. So you can see here, this card has a volt mod on the memory. If I remember correctly, this scaled 100 megahertz on the memory, going from 1.6 to 1.7 volts. The results Madness sent in are similar. He just went a bit further. He went all the way to 1.8 volts or slightly over it, and he got insane frequencies. I think he got 2800 megahertz or something. So yeah, his cards scaled insanely with voltage. And then there's the GDDI revision, like I have on this card, or the Lightning, like the Lightning is a GDDI card. I don't know about the first Lightning. That's one of the ones that I don't know. My 560 Ti 448 also has GDDI, and that's the only 2 GDDI cards that I know of. And also this one, but I never ran this because this was broken. So the GDDI memory is one I observed having negative cold scaling. So basically what that means, the colder the memory gets, the less stable it becomes. I don't know if you take the memory really, really cold, if it gets better again, but on ambient, I got better clocks out of it when I heated it up. In fact, I used a hairdryer and pointed that at the Lightning, and I went from 2450 megahertz, which you saw in the last video, to 2538 megahertz, just heating up the memory. But I also observed that when you make it too hot, at some point it becomes unstable again. So there is a sweet spot for the temperature. You don't want to have it too hot, but also not too cold. And the temperature was kind of like I was holding my fingers to the memory, and it was kind of just under the territory where it starts to hurt. Like you could continuously hold your fingers to the memory, but just about. A bit hotter, and you would have not been able to touch it for long anymore. That's about where it had its sweet spot, at least on the Lightning. And then the other thing about GDDI memory is I observed that voltage scaling on it is less impressive. So the 560 Ti 448 and the 580 Lightning, they allow you to change voltage in software. The Lightning I measured with a multimeter. If you crank the voltage up, you get 1.7 volts at the VRM. And I observed there is some voltage scaling there, but it's not as good as eDie. So the 580 Lightning, for example, scaled 25 megahertz above that. It's not the same VRM and PCB as this. So I think the overall voltage increase Even though we had 1.7 volts at the VRM for the Lightning, I don't think I went actually 100 millivolts up. I think I went more like 50. So having 25 megahertz, if you assume some linear scaling, is about half as good as eDi. So yeah. The thing about this though is I can't really say which one is better. So if you want to do extreme overclocking, you take it really, really cold. Assuming that GDI is gonna get worse the colder you take it, you want eDi on an extreme overclocking card. But when we bring this in, my results, and yes, I am actually doing that with a piece of paper, you will see that the GDI cards actually perform better in like on ambient in their stock configuration, because there the memory gets hot. Because 500 series are not really that great for memory cooling. And yeah, so GDI is more happy about being hot than eDi. So if you run your card in a normal configuration, like ambient cool, I don't know about water cooling where the memory is also getting cooled, but like stock heat sinks and like core only water cooling, GDI performed better. So yeah, you kind of have to decide for yourself what you want. Yeah, and now we can get into the second part of the video. So you can see here my binning chart. It's grown a bit. I have all the results now. I got all the cards working. Well, actually there's two cards, this one and then the fake one from China. I haven't run these because obvious reasons. So yeah, I don't really want to go over the entire thing again. There's a dedicated video for that, but I'm going to go over the new things and also the changes I've made to this. I've entered new things into it. So you see, instead of just tracking the memory manufacturer, I also track which revision it is now. But you can see the first Lightning, the green PCB 580, and then also the 480. I don't know what revision they are. I suspect that this is GDI just from how it behaves. I suspect this is also AFR because I only saw one entry from Hynix memory in the BIOS, but that could be totally wrong. And for this one, I actually don't know. This could be either one. Because you can't really, like, this is a 400 series cards, the other ones are 500 series. And you can't just compare clocks between them and then say, oh, this kind of clocks like that. Because it doesn't work like that. 400 series is first gen Fermi and also is running some lower stock speeds on the memory and like different memory because it ships with a lower clock speed. But yeah, so I think the Zotac 580 amp and green PCB 580 were kind of incomplete in the last one. Those are now complete. It's nothing really that interesting. But I've tested the straight up NVIDIA Founders Edition 580 now, which has a really, really good ASIC. As you can see, that's one of the new metrics I've tracked. So I've recorded the better than so and so many of this card percent. I didn't want to log the actual ASIC, like there's an actual reading, and then there's the better than percentage reading. I like the better than percentage reading because it shows the difference more, because these two, like these 89 and 86% ASIC, are actually on the actual score are like 0.2% apart, but here you can see there's a bigger difference. So you can see the difference more because here you can actually have technically a 0 and 100%, whereas on the actual scale it goes like from 65 to like 89, 85 or something. So yeah. And like even with this good core, I mean, it performed good. It did good. The memory, I suspect it's just getting very hot, just like on the DirectCU2, so the memory clock is fairly low compared to the GDI card, which is fairly happy. And like I suspect the other Lightning is GDI as well, because like it also like it has the same memory cooling, and this one also clocks really high. Also this clock 2400, which is also GDI. So yeah. So the 580 FE, it is completely unmodified. Complete bone stock heatsink, and that's a pretty good result if you ask me. Because yes, the Lightnings clock higher, but they also have twice as many VRM phases and much better output filtering. So I like that result. Also, the high voltage result is, it's also nice. Like, it's within 5 megahertz of one of the lightnings, which might be just because the stock heatsink has a lot of thermal mass with that vapor chamber in it, so the temperature isn't that high. But yeah, that's a good result. So the 580 FE is, I like it. I really like it. I guess I'm gonna modify it because I want to test voltage scaling on that EDI as well, because this is 400 series. I would like it on a 500 series card. So yeah, maybe, because maybe there's also differences within that. Then I got the 560 working again. Also pretty good core results. That's pretty nice, but I don't really have anything else to say about that. Now we get to the 480 FE. Now, if you watch the modding and overclocking live stream I did with that, you will know that apparently the card is really good. So at first I thought it's not really that great, but then Bullzoid and Madness enlightened me by saying that first gen Fermi is just a lot slower than 500 series. And I mean, it makes sense. I just wasn't expecting that there would be such a difference. So 400 series cards, at least the big cards, like this one ran pretty fast also, but this is on a smaller core. It seems to be just with the big cores that they are pretty slow compared to the second gen Fermis. Or maybe I'm getting that wrong. I don't have a small core 500 series apart from that fake China thing that doesn't run. So maybe those are even faster. So yeah. And actually also the normal V-core, for the 480 FE, this is actually under stock voltage. Whereas for the 580, this is at or slightly above stock voltage, depending on what model you have. For this is almost 50 millivolts under stock. Like the 480 comes with 1.067 millivolts volts stock. So yeah, I undervolted this thing actually. And then look at that clock. This is almost 900 megahertz. This is beating all the 580s except the lightnings, which is to be like the lightnings are really, really good. Like, that is a really, really, really good result. And the memory also, like, you gotta keep in mind that the memory on the 400 series is just slower. Like, this also only did like 2200 even with the overvolt, and it did 2100 before. So like the 480 is fairly modded, but that's also a really good result. I'm really happy with that. But I can't quite say what what revision it is. Then the overvolt result is kinda, it's not that great. It still beats the direct CO2, but apart from that, it's just slower. So apparently there's not that much voltage scaling on my 480, because like this is already really, really high, and this, like this is also really, really high for a 480. Like I was told that this is an insane core for a 480. And actually currently, as I'm making this video, I hold the world record on 3D Mark for running a 480 with an 1800X. Like it's not a fancy world record or anything, it's just the like 3D Mark got an update and it now shows you the best result on like ever for your configuration, which on my test bench is a Ryzen 7 1800X and the card I run. And as of filming this video, I first pushed a new best score and then pushed another new best score. So tomorrow the best score for 1800X and 480 was something like 3800 something. Then I pushed it to 3967, I think. And now I've pushed it to 4010. So yeah, this is really fast. And actually, I couldn't run both of these clocks at the same time. The card actually, this is like on this card you have to choose what to push. And I've noticed that core on the 480 gives you more score than memory. So I ran 940 core and I think 2150 memory for the best score. Yeah, and then kind of the last thing I want to say, and we're also getting at 20 minutes now. The last thing I want to say is ASIC quality does not always have a meaning. You can see it here. This is only better than 14%. This is like the only score that's worse is this one. And the Zotac is a really truly awful card. So you would expect that this is pretty bad. And if you compare to the 500 series, this also doesn't look that impressive for this result. But it's a 480, not a 500 series card. So this is legitimately a very, very, very good, very fast 480. Which, yes, all of the mods could have helped with that. But even before all the mods, when it still was on the stock heatsink, which now it's on the Morpheus, if you saw the stream, even then I think it's like 920 megahertz. So yeah, ASIC quality, it can tell you sometimes how good your core is, but sometimes it doesn't mean anything, which for the 480 is true. This low ASIC quality, the card just doesn't care. Like usually, as I understand it, ASIC quality kind of like the lower your ASIC quality is, the lower your clock will be at stock voltage, and the more clock you will gain if you pump up the voltage. Which for this card is not really true, as it seems. Like that's a really, really, really high low voltage result. And again, like I undervolted the card. The stock voltage is higher than this. So yeah, ASIC quality, don't trust ASIC quality. It can lie to you a lot. So yeah. And that's pretty much the end of the video. So yeah, closing thoughts. I still, if I find a reason to take those cards apart, I will complete the list. And yeah, I think I really want to do more testing with like memory revisions. I mean, yeah, I don't really remember anyone ever talking about memory revisions on graphics cards. The only thing I see is basically, is it Samsung, is it Hynix, is it Micron, and all that. So yeah, because like there are differences, you can see some patterns in between the eDie and GDDI memory. So yeah, I really want to look more into that. I think I'm going to volt mod this card for the memory. I might try some volt mods on the Hynix. Like I know this card doesn't like more voltage, but if the other card is not AFR and something different, I think I might volt mod that as well, and look what it does. Yeah, like I really wanna look into more of this. And yeah, that should really be it now. So thank you for watching, hope you enjoyed, and until next time, goodbye.